Smith, and I'm joined by Jim Shaw. Jim,
Hi,
thank you for joining us here at Vialago. Our next guest that we have is Bonnie Brodner. Bonnie is running for re-election for the school committee. Bonnie, thank you so much for sitting down with Jim and I.
Thank you for doing this. I think it's a great service to the voters.
Great. Well, this is our first time doing this, so we're very excited and excited to have LexMedia here to be able to give us the resources and access to be able to show the show on LexMedia. So I thought maybe, Bonnie, we could start with talking about, as you are running for re-election for your second term, it is a contested race, correct?
Yes, it is.
So why don't you talk about your past term and some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of that you achieved?
Great. I'm happy to. I would say the three things that I'm most proud of is, one, being able to eliminate full-day kindergarten and elementary music fees, lowering the bus fee. That's one item, and the Bridge, Bowman, and Estabrook projects.
Mm-hmm.
The Bridge and Bowman have completed successfully. Estabrook is under budget, ahead of schedule, and the students are set to start to move in the first day back from February vacation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the other thing that I think is crucial, and I don't know if it's publicized enough, is that the gap between the most advanced, highest achievers and the most struggling students is getting smaller. And we're raising achievement, not just, we're always going to have the highest achievers doing a great job, and that's something to be proud of. But we're also taking care of the most struggling students, and so that to me is really important.
Well, I think it is. I think, having a plan to focus on all the needs of all the students,
Right.
and reducing that gap is a huge achievement.
And so, Bonnie, you have children that are in the Lexington schools, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and how old are they?
I have an 18-year-old who's graduating,
Okay.
and I have a 14-year-old who's he's not in the Lexington schools, but he's a freshman in high school.
Okay. Well, in looking forward, you hear a lot about kind of hot topics with the school committee and issues that have to be addressed. One, obviously, is the overcrowding. And how do you feel the school committee can address that issue, and what can we do to help the overcrowding that we're experiencing in the schools?
It's I think of it as our biggest source of pride. Is now creating our largest challenges, because we have wonderful schools. We have people moving in. I know that's why my family moved here, because of the schools. And so on the one hand, I think it's wonderful that we're having more people move in, but it definitely creates a lot of challenges for us. We do have overcrowding in a few different schools, and to me the most important thing is to get the community into the conversation as soon as we've already started doing that, and we're trying to hear from all different contingencies to figure out what we're going to do. It's not going to be easy, and I think it's important to we also need to be sure to have accurate long-term forecasting, because that's been an issue for us. The long-term enrollment forecasting hasn't been as accurate
And
as
how can
we'd
that be
like.
addressed? Because it is so hard to accurately forecast, especially when we have so many different types of housing situations in the
Right.
town. So how is the school committee in working with the superintendent looking to address that?
The school committee actually directed the superintendent to create a working group of what we call the best statistical minds in Lexington. So we have a group of, I think, 5 or 6 residents who do this stuff for a living. And they've gotten together with the superintendent a few times, and they're looking at all the different possible mathematical models of different segments of population, and they're going to give us a report in the spring. So, we're hoping that we'll get some good data from that.
Which gives us some projections out a few years about what the expectations are and what the needs will be.
Right.
Going 3 to 5 years out or something like that? Or
Well, 5
even
to
further?
10
5 to
is
10,
is the
okay.
ideal.
Okay.
But obviously, as you get out further, it's going to be less accurate.
Right.
You know, one of the things that happened to us is with the economy tanking in 2008, first of all, nobody could have predicted that, unfortunately. And Lexington was seen as a really favorable place to move in. So while neighboring towns were losing people, for some reason we were getting a lot of people coming in. It could have, you know, we don't know why, but it definitely seems to have something to do, to have had something to do with the economy. So we're hoping that this working group will help us figure out what happened and why.
You had mentioned earlier, you had helped to sort of reduce the costs of buses, making it more accessible to families to put their kids on the bus. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's been an issue for generations.
Right.
You know, I know we struggled. My son has graduated and out 4 to 5 years out of high school now, but I remember in middle school we dealt with that issue. And there was never any relief for families that had more than 1 or 2 or 3 kids. You know, if you had 3 kids, there wasn't any discount if you had to put 3 kids on the bus versus 1 or 5 or what have you. Has the solution addressed some of those issues? How did the costs come down?
Well, the way the cost came down initially is that town meeting agreed to fund some of the money. The school committee, the school budget, has always had some of the cost of the buses in its budget, and it's passed on more. So it ended up passing on a lot of the cost to the riders. A few years ago, town meeting agreed to fund some of that money, so that decreased the bus fee in half, I think, or almost in half. So now it's $300, depending on when you register and things. And then the school department has agreed each year since, I think this will be the 2nd year, that we'll continue funding the difference so that we can keep it at $300. There is a family cap. I don't remember what the family cap is, so I think if you have 5 kids, you pay the same as if you have 3 kids.
Okay.
And it's made a big difference having the bus fee lowered.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Because
I know
I think the ridership is...
percentage of ridership, I think, has increased.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good thing, of course. Unfortunately, I think it's part of the culture, and the culture is the hardest thing to be shifted to drive kids, you know, in a lot of segments. So, you know, we definitely have a lot of work to do.
Well, in talking about culture, a different type of culture, Lexington obviously is such a culturally diverse community, and maybe you could touch upon how the school committee is working to really engage the different cultures in this town, and how to move forward as one community with the different cultures and diversity that we have.
That's a great question. We're not where we should be with that, I don't think. We actually have a meeting set up at the end of February with CAL, the Chinese American Association of Lexington, to try and engage and figure out how we can move forward together as one community. I think conversations are crucial, and so moving forward, I think that it's important to try and engage anybody who will talk to us about how we can be more unified.
Okay.
That is an issue.
One of the things we talked about was kind of your process and your style and what you brought to the school committee this past term. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you feel that your style benefits the school committee?
Thank you for asking me that. My style is that I don't come in with a preconceived idea of what needs to be done or what the problem is or how it can be fixed. I ask questions. I ask probing questions that help me really understand the issues. You know, for every issue that comes up, there's probably about 10 or 15 different sides or there's a lot of different moving parts. And so it's really important to figure out if you change one thing, you know, what other 50 things are going to happen, and how do we either minimize that or be able to deal with that. So my style is to listen to the issues and then listen to answers. And usually I find the best answer moving forward is a hybrid of a bunch of different little pieces of what other people have suggested. And I think that's one of my strengths, is being able to do that and really listen.
So you consider yourself independent, like an independent thinker on the board?
Yes.
That's an important thing, I think.
Yes, I do.
Sort of addressing things on your own. I mean, I know you're working with other members of the committee, but I think since you've joined the board, I mean, you've strived to be independent and to sort of, as you say, you think about things, you ask questions, probing questions about everything that you vote on. You don't take a cue, you don't, right?
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I oftentimes I don't know how I'm going to vote when I walk into the room, because I want to hear all the different sides. Although I do have a line in the sand that I wouldn't cross when it comes to being fair and just to all the different constituencies of kids. And I do look at the end of the day, when I come up with my solution, at what is going to work best for the kids in Lexington. I have to, absolutely, we need to take into consideration the community and the staff and the faculty and the administration and the parents and families. But at the end of the day, it's what's best to help kids learn.
Great. Well, I think that's a great segue to the end of our interview. I think.
Well, I have one more quick question, if you don't mind. It's just it came up in one of the last interviews, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the autonomy of the superintendent. There's some concern that maybe he's a little bit more independent than that the board they may give him a little bit of autonomy, a little bit more autonomy than maybe most superintendents get to pursue his agenda. But can you just talk to that a little bit about how you engage and work with the superintendent?
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really important is that we are as a school board, we're the navigators of the ship that's the school system. And we set the direction that we want the school system to go in. And his job is to get us there. And I think that we do a good job setting the direction. There are times where we don't agree. And if I don't agree with something the superintendent says or does, the first thing I do is pick up the phone and talk to him about it. I won't, my method of trying is not going to be, having a conflict in public. If we don't agree and he's still, insisting on doing something the way he wants, then I would say something in public. So, there are many times where I might just pick up the phone and talk to him, and then something will get ironed out. So I know, I've heard that criticism before, but I really don't think that's the way that it works.
Oh, I just thought it would be good for you to speak to that, because, I mean, when you put your ear to the ground, you hear the things like you talk about the overcrowding and other things. This is just one of those issues that tends to come up, and as an incumbent, I just thought it'd be important for you to even speak briefly towards it. So.
Well, and that was a good analogy, the ship and moving the ship forward, and obviously the superintendent really has to play the role of the captain and getting us to the destination.
Right, because we're not educators. One of us actually is right now, but we don't necessarily have to be educators to be on the board.
To be on the committee, and yet the school committee is. I mean, the schools account for over 70% of the budget. So I mean, it's a very large part of the budget of the town of Lexington that that needs to be paid attention to, and it's a very important role. So we appreciate your time, and we appreciate you coming here to have coffee with us and sit down and talk about your platform. And we wish you the best of luck on March 3rd.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your service over the last 3 years.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you,
It's
Bonnie.
nice to meet you.
Nice to see you,
Take
Bonnie.
care.